Okay, so today what we're going to be working on, writing the equation again, but we're going to be given imaginary roots, roots that have i's in the answer, okay? So I want you to try this, which is the same thing as yesterday. I just changed the equations. I want you to solve these two equations by completing the square. So put me on pause, do them, then come back and check your answers. Okay, so for number 1, we're first going to subtract 36 from both sides. So I subtract 36. So I get x squared plus 10x equals negative 36. All right, now remember we do half of the number in front of x, half of b, which is 10. Half of 10 is 5, squared is 25, and we're going to add that to both sides here. So I get x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals negative 36 plus 25. Now, negative 36 plus 25 is negative 9. Now, remember, the left side we're going to factor. Remember, we get the same factors. We have x and x. Remember, the number that goes inside is the number that we squared. The number that we squared was positive 5. So it's x plus 5, x plus 5. All right, another way to write x plus 5 times x plus 5 is x plus 5 squared. So we have x plus 5 squared equals negative 9. To get rid of the square, remember we square root both sides. So we get x plus 5 equals, don't forget the plus minus. Now it's plus minus the square root of negative 9. Now remember, the negative under the square root becomes an I. And then I have the square root of 9, which is 3. So it's plus minus, don't forget the plus minus, 3i. So I have x plus 5 equals plus minus 3i. All right, now we're going to minus 5 from both sides. X equals, put that negative in front. Negative 5 plus minus 3i. Okay, number 2. So same thing, I'm going to start off by subtracting 27. So I get x squared minus 6x equals negative 27. Half of negative 6 is negative 3, right? Make sure you watch the signs. Squared is positive 9, because anytime you square a negative, it's positive. Add that to both sides, so we get x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals negative 27 plus 9. Now, negative 27 plus 9 is negative 18. We're going to factor the left side. Remember, we're going to get the same parentheses. It's x and x. Remember, the number that goes inside is the number we squared. We squared negative 3, so it's x minus 3 times x minus 3. So another way to write x minus 3 times x minus 3 would be x minus 3 squared. So it's x minus 3 squared equals negative 18. To get rid of the square, we're going to square root both sides. So I get x minus 3 equals plus minus the square root of negative 18. Now, the square root of 18 is not a perfect square, but I can simplify that. So I'm going to do that on the side over here. Or is that this plus minus? So remember, the negative underneath becomes I. So I have plus minus I, the square root of 18. What perfect square goes into 18? That would be 9. So it would be 3, the square root of 2. So now I have to put in that I with it. So it would be 3i plus minus the square root of 2. Okay? So it would be x minus 3 equals plus minus 3i, the square root of 2. And then we're going to add 3 to both sides to solve for x. X equals, put the 3 in front of the plus minus, 3 plus minus 3i, the square root of 2. All right, so we're going to go backwards. I'm going to give you answers that have i's in it, and we have to go back to here. So we're going to complete the square backwards. Okay, it's basically the same exact thing that we did yesterday. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start by taking the zeros and setting them equal to x. So x equals plus minus 2i. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure this here is The first thing you want to do is make sure this here is isolated. Make sure there's nothing in front of the plus minus. And this is good. Okay? So now I'm just going to rewrite this so I don't have that circle around it. So now to get rid of the I, you're going to square both sides. Because think about where an I came from. An I has to have a negative under the radical, right? So to get rid of a radical, and now it's going to be the same thing with an I, you're going to square both sides. So I get x squared equals, now to just plug this in the calculator. When you square it, positive and a negative, it's positive. Just plug this in the calculator. Plug in, type in 2. The I button, use parentheses, sorry. Use parentheses, 2. Press the I button. The I button is by the decimal, so you have to hit second decimal. Type in I. Close the parentheses, and then hit squared. And what you'll get is negative 4. See, that got rid of the I. And now we just have to get it to equal 0, so add 4. X squared plus 4 equals 0. And that's the final answer for that one. All right, so let's take a look at number 2. All right, so my zeros, which I'm going to set equal to x, are x equals negative 2 plus minus 5i. Now, you want to get this isolated first, so you have to get rid of the minus 2. So add 2 to both sides. So you have x plus 2 equals plus minus 5i. So what did I say before? How do we get rid of the I? To get rid of the I, you're going to square both sides. So on the right side, just plug this in the calculator. Type in parentheses 5, hit the I button, it's by the decimal. Close the parentheses, now hit square. You have to use parentheses because it's 5i that's squared, not just the I. So this actually comes out to be negative 25. Now this here, x plus 2 squared is x plus 2 times x plus 2. All right, so now we're going to distribute. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 2 times x, 2x. 2 times 2, 4 equals negative 25. Clean up the middle. X squared. 2x plus 2x is 4x. Plus 4 equals negative 25. Now you want it to equal 0, so add 25. X squared plus 4x, 4 plus 25 is 29, equals 0. All right, so let's take a look at number 3. All right, so number 3 has an I and a radical in it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is set it equal to x. X equals 3 plus minus 2i, the square root of 6. Minus 3, you got to isolate. You got to get this all isolated. X minus 3 equals plus minus 2i, the square root of 6. To get rid of the I, the square root, you have to square both sides. The whole thing. Now you're going to use your calculator, plug the right side in. Parentheses, 2, press the I button by the decimal. Now type in the square root of 6. Close the parentheses, so you have big parentheses, right? Now square it. So you're going to get negative 24. Now x minus 3 squared is x minus 3 times x minus 3. And now we're going to distribute. X times x, x squared. X times negative 3, negative 3x. Negative 3 times x, negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Equals negative 24. Clean up the middle here. X squared minus 6x plus 9 equals negative 24. And then we want it to equal 0, so we just add 24 to both sides. So when I add 24 to both sides, I get x squared minus 6x plus 33 equals 0. Okay, so that's it, and we'll practice in class tomorrow. Everybody have a good night.